Hello and welcome to the sales conversation. This is one of the most exciting things to talk about for me. And I want to just take a moment to remind you to take a breath and see through the lens of the sales conversation being abundant and exciting and not something that you're going to dread. With these tools and techniques under your belt, surely you will be going into your own sales conversations feeling excited, feeling inspired, and feeling enthusiastic. And that energy literally is contagious for the person on the line that you're speaking with. The first thing that you need to do before you go into the sales conversation is you need to think about your energy, and you need to perhaps take a moment to sit and meditate and ask for divine guidance and divine wisdom. I always ask that I would be a channel for the divine and that God would speak through me, that the exact right words that the person on the other end of the conversation is needing to hear for whatever kind of service I can be a channel for, that those words would come through me. Because I see the sales conversation as something that is far more valuable than just a sales conversation. There are things that I might say on the sales conversation that has a life-impacting change for someone, where their life will never be the same regardless of whether they work with me or not, or whether they engage in my services or not. And that is my intention, the intention for the highest good of all people involved. So when you go into it from that place, you really come from this foundation of wanting to be of highest and best service that you can, and then also being open to receiving value, whether that's in knowledge about your ideal client or knowledge about how your products or services are being presented and perceived in the world. And then, of course, there's hopefully the sale that you make. And so I encourage you to just come from that foundation. And if you feel as though it would be helpful for you to sit and get quiet and ask to be of service, then that is an option that you have. But there is definitely some preparation that you're going to need to do before you get on a sales conversation. There's nothing worse than someone getting on the phone with someone and they're asking for them to invest in their services, and there's like phones ringing in the background or dogs barking or kids running around or what have you. So honor your space for your conversations in the way that you would honor a really important sacred conversation, because this is a sacred conversation. And then you will be presenting yourself as the professional woman entrepreneur that you are. You'll also want to make sure that you've had your potential client fill some kind of a questionnaire out ahead of time, so that you're obtaining information about what it is that they're looking for, and also you can decipher what their level of commitment is to what it is that they want to receive. And I do want to say that there are a lot of people in the marketplace who, if this survey or this questionnaire is not filled out ahead of time, they won't conduct the conversation. In fact, I used to do that myself. My philosophy was, if this person can't even fill out a quick questionnaire, then how are they going to be a great client? And I would give people 2 chances to fill it out, or I would cancel the sales conversation call with them. And then I took some high-level business mastery training with Tony Robbins, and he talked about this in our training, and he found out that his own sales team was doing this, and he was not happy. And so they changed their process, and the salespeople for his company started getting on every call, whether they had filled out this questionnaire ahead of time or not. And I came home and started doing the same, and his sales conversion rates increased, as did mine. And the reason for this is, like, you might have the perfect client who is literally just busy and there's so much going on in their life at the time that they really do want to work with you. They really do have the resources to invest with you, and they just genuinely didn't get around to it, and you're missing an opportunity. So I would still be paying attention to their level of commitment. And if they didn't fill out a form ahead of time, you'll certainly want to obtain that more critical information at the beginning about, well, what is it that you would like to have happen? What are your goals, or what are your desires? And what level of commitment do you have on a scale of 1 to 10 to getting to those goals? And where are you in a financial position to invest in yourself at this time? And that way you're kind of pre-screening on the call. But you can pre-screen ahead of time. And if it doesn't happen ahead of time, you can certainly pre-screen on the call. And then you'll go into the conversation, even if you've obtained this information ahead of time, and to begin to identify and affirm what it is that they're looking for, and if it's a fit for you to offer your product or service. If it's not, be honest. This is not about every person being a prospect. Every person is not going to be a prospect. And if you're coming to the conversation from that perspective, then you're literally coming from an energy of desperation potentially. I mean, certainly you're screening people and you're identifying if they are a fit for you ahead of time, so that's helpful. But the goal in the conversation is to really point out and see and bring to the surface whether or not this person is a fit for you and whether or not your product or service is a fit for you, and vice versa. Both of you are really leaning back and interviewing and checking in with one another. And then once you get through this part of the conversation, you're going to get to a point where it's decision time. And in the decision time period, people will begin to backpedal, because women are great at staying in indecisiveness, and they don't even really recognize just how much it makes their skin crawl or how uncomfortable it is. And it is a form of procrastination. So this is where you have to step up your game as the confident entrepreneur and really be of service to them in getting to an outcome, getting to a decision one way or another. And in the sales conversation, there may be certain times with certain people where they're just not going to get to a decision. And that's okay. And this is where you want to tune in energetically to your own intuition and know whether this is time to, help them along further or to be flat out honest with them. Again, each situation is going to be so unique that you have to assess whether or not it's time to say whatever it is you're going to say next. For example, I had worked with this one woman in a different format, and I had not privately coached her, but she knew me and I knew her pretty intimately. And she engaged me and said, listen, I need a coach. I want to work with you. And so we got on a conversation on a call, and she literally started out the conversation about why she wanted to work with me, that she knew it was time for her to hire the coach, and that I was the exact right coach for her. And then we get to the tail end of the sales conversation, and I'm waiting for her to make her decision. And she's like, you know what? I think I want to think about this. And I was very blunt with her. And I said, listen, Jane, you don't need to think about anything. You need to go get your credit card and give it to me. And that was one of the few times that I was that blunt. But the reason why I was so blunt was because A, I knew her, and B, she specifically said in the beginning of the conversation, I need a coach. You're the coach for me. I need a coach now. So I reminded her of that. So when I said, you need to go get your credit card now, I mirrored to her. I didn't tell her there's a difference. And I said, listen, what I heard you say in the beginning was that you needed a coach. You knew I was the exact only coach for you, and you needed a coach now. So what else is there to think about? And she goes, gosh, you're right, Rebecca. Let me go get my credit card. I'll be right back. And that was really supporting her to stay out of self-sabotage. So you need to identify, when are these circumstances occurring, how they're occurring, what is your relationship with the person, and where you need to really support them in getting to that decision. The other thing is they might need to go have a conversation with their husband. You have to get that person to a decision before they go have a conversation with their husband or their partner. And I'll explain why later when we go into the objections. But what I want you to know now is that basically the partner will go into wanting to protect the person from the thing that they desire is because the woman hasn't come to a full-on decision. And P.S., as a woman entrepreneur, you have to be making your own decisions. That's part of being a businesswoman. It's not, if you have a codependent relationship with someone in your life and you've got to go and get consulting on every conversation or every decision you make in your business, you're going to drive yourself crazy. So supporting women to really get out of, if women are your target market, or men for that matter too, but supporting people to get out of this indecisiveness is only going to be of greater service to them, not only in the sales conversation, but also in life. And then the final thing is you'll want to follow up. So what happens next? Are you taking a credit card? Are you having your team send a welcome packet? All of these things you have to have down pat in your sales process in order to be making an impact, having a professional reputation, and having things flow flawlessly in your business. So if the person is going to think about it, or you need to set another follow-up conversation, this is your chance to say, okay, great. When are you going to have a conversation with your husband? Or when are you going to go check your financial situation? And how can I support you in that? Or when are you going to have the conversation with this person that might lend you the money? Or when are you going to go to the bank to see if you can get a loan? Whatever the option is that you've discussed with them, you want to have a time frame. You are not being of service to anyone when you are not having a time frame. And you want to remember this full on, because there was a time where I had worked with this woman for a year and a half, probably on and off. And she was signing up for another 90-day coaching package with me. And she said that she needed to get the money sorted out. And because she was in another country, I wasn't really thinking like we do in the States, where it's like, oh, you log into the banking account and you transfer money over from one account to the other. And depending upon what bank it is, if it's with the same bank or not, it takes anywhere from 0 seconds to 2 or 3 days. And so a couple of weeks went by and I just felt this feeling like, gosh, what's going on with her? And I said, listen, let's hop on the phone. I really want to support you. And I asked her directly and I said, listen, I'm curious to know if there's anything I can do to support you around getting this sorted, because you're losing momentum in your life and in your business because you're not receiving the ongoing mentorship. And P.S., I don't know how many private coaching spots I'm going to have left. And so I said, how long does it where you live take to get the money sorted? And she goes, oh, only a couple of hours. And I was like shocked. And it was a learning opportunity for me, not an opportunity for me to go, geez, Rebecca, you were an idiot. Why didn't you ask her this before? It was an opportunity for me to see how I can hold my clients powerful and that they still need handholding, even if they're not a new client, even if they're an existing client. I need to know their exact plan after they've made a decision for what they're going to do and when they're going to do it. And so she said, yeah, listen, I have been dragging my feet and I have been, putting this off, and I know it's not serving me in any way. And she goes, I'm going to go take care of this. I think it was going to take her like a day or two or something. So she was going to take care of it and then message me and be in contact. And she goes, I promise I'll keep my word and be in contact with you. And it was of service to her to take that action and stop spinning her wheels and procrastinating. And so going forward from that experience, I am always fully available for someone to get very clear on what it is that they're going to be doing, and then staying in close contact with them to support them and following up and communicating with them, or hopping back on the phone with them if that's what's required. So whatever kind of hand-holding they need until that actual conversion occurs, because walking around and saying, oh, I just made this amount of money and the client hasn't actually paid yet, you're lying to yourself. And that's not of service to anyone. So until the sale is actually the transaction occurs, it's not how much money you've booked, it's how much money you have actually processed. That's when I put that amount of money on a money tracking sheet and saying, okay, this is the amount of money. And then at the end of the month, I know exactly how much money I made. I don't put down booked money because it's not actual money in your bank. So I encourage you to be honest with yourself. I encourage you to be compassionate with yourself. And I encourage you to stay in a place of learning about yourself and learning about your conversations and learning about your clients. And in doing that, you will be massively successful as a person who is mastering the sales conversation.